For men over 50, 6 daily movements that restore balance, strength, and energy. Point 1. The frame. Why most advice stops working after 50. Most health advice isn't wrong, it's just aimed at the wrong body. The guidance you followed for 30 years, eat less, move more, cut fat, run more miles, was built on research done mostly on younger adults. Their metabolisms respond differently. Their muscles repair differently. Their hormones behave differently. After 50, the underlying biology changes. Muscle becomes harder to build and easier to lose, a process researchers call anabolic resistance. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures in your cells, decline in both number and efficiency. Recovery windows lengthen, and the body starts prioritizing fat storage over muscle maintenance unless it's given a specific reason not to. This isn't decline, it's recalibration. And it means the strategy has to recalibrate too. Here's what makes this frustrating for a lot of men. The advice isn't fringe. It's not coming from bad sources. It's the advice printed on cereal boxes, repeated by well-meaning doctors working from general guidelines, and echoed across 1,000 fitness articles written for a general audience. It's not wrong for that general audience. It's just averaged across every age group, and averages hide the exact detail that matters most once you cross 50. 2 pieces of advice, in particular, quietly stop working around this age and keep getting repeated anyway. Point 2, common advice 1, eat less to lose weight. This is the most repeated piece of health advice in the world. Cut calories, eat smaller portions. The math seems simple, fewer calories in, less weight on the body. For a man over 50, this advice is incomplete and often counterproductive. Here's the researched reality. When men over 50 lose weight through calorie restriction alone, a significant portion of that weight loss comes from lean muscle tissue, not fat. Studies on aging and weight loss have consistently shown that older adults lose muscle mass at a higher rate during caloric deficits than younger adults do. That's the anabolic resistance at work. The body pulls energy from muscle first because muscle is metabolically expensive to maintain, and the aging body is wired to conserve. The result is a familiar and frustrating pattern. The scale moves, but the body composition gets worse. Less muscle, slower metabolism. And because muscle is what burns calories at rest, losing it makes the next round of weight loss even harder. Many men describe this as yo-yoing, but it isn't willpower failing. It's a strategy that was never built for this stage of life. There's also a quieter consequence that rarely makes it into the conversation. Muscle isn't just about strength or appearance. It's active tissue that helps regulate blood sugar, supports joint stability, and serves as a kind of metabolic reserve the body draws on during illness or recovery. Losing it through repeated restrictive dieting doesn't just slow metabolism. It removes a resource the body may need later. That's part of why the standard eat less approach, applied without attention to muscle, can leave a man lighter on the scale but more fragile underneath. Why the alternative works better at this life stage. The researched reality is this. For men over 50, the priority isn't eating less. It's building and preserving muscle while eating enough protein to support it. Research on aging populations points to a need for meaningfully more protein per pound of body weight than younger adults require, simply to overcome anabolic resistance and keep the muscle-building signal strong enough to register. Paired with resistance-based movement, not necessarily heavy lifting, but consistent, structured resistance, this shifts the entire equation. Instead of the body cannibalizing muscle to create a deficit, it preserves muscle and draws energy from fat stores instead. The scale moves slower, may move slower. The body underneath moves in the right direction. This is the deeper principle. After 50, weight loss isn't a math problem. It's a signaling problem. And the signal has to be strength, not restriction. In practice, this looks almost boringly simple. Protein at each meal, prioritized rather than an afterthought. Resistance movement most days, not necessarily in a gym, not necessarily with heavy weight, but consistent enough that the muscle building signal never fully goes quiet. That consistency is what the body is listening for. It's not asking for intensity. It's asking for a reason not to let muscle go. Point 3, common advice 2, long, steady cardio is best for heart health. The second piece of common advice is just as deeply rooted. Walk more, jog more, keep the heart rate moderate for long stretches. Steady-state cardio has been the default heart health prescription for decades. It's not bad advice, But for men over 50, it's an incomplete one. And research on cardiovascular aging points to something more specific. Here's the researched reality. Large-scale research on cardiorespiratory fitness has identified VO2 max, a measure of how efficiently the body uses oxygen during exertion, as one of the strongest predictors of longevity across all age groups, and an especially powerful one after 50. Men with higher VO2 max scores show meaningfully lower all-cause mortality risk than men with low or even moderate fitness levels, independent of other health factors. The issue is that long, steady, low-intensity cardio, while useful for general activity, does relatively little to raise VO2 max once a baseline level of fitness is established. It maintains, it doesn't build. And after 50, when mitochondrial density and efficiency are already declining, maintaining isn't enough. The body needs a stimulus that specifically challenges the cardiovascular and mitochondrial system to adapt. Think of it this way. Steady cardio tells the body to keep the current system running. Higher intensity effort tells the body the current system isn't sufficient, that it needs to build more capacity to meet the demand. Only one of those messages prompts adaptation. This is a subtle distinction, but it's the entire reason two men who both exercise regularly can have very different fitness trajectories as they age. One is maintaining, the other is building. Why the alternative works better at this life stage. The researched reality favors a mix. Short bursts of higher intensity effort, layered on top of a foundation of easier, lower intensity movement, sometimes described as polarized training. This combination has been shown to improve VO2 max more effectively than steady-state cardio alone, while also supporting mitochondrial biogenesis, literally the creation of new energy-producing structures inside the body's cells. For a man over 50, this matters beyond fitness. VO2 max is tightly linked to energy levels, cognitive sharpness, and resilience against age-related disease. It's not about training like an athlete. It's about giving the cardiovascular system a reason to stay adaptable rather than simply asking it to log miles. This doesn't mean abandoning the daily walk. The easy, low-intensity movement still matters. It supports recovery, joint health, and general activity levels, and it forms the base of the polarized approach. What changes is the addition, not the subtraction. A few short, harder efforts layered into the week, on top of the walking you're likely already doing. The base stays. The signal gets sharper. Hash point 4, the longevity science angle. Why this life stage is different. Here's the principle that ties both corrections together, and it's the core insight behind Primespan after 50. Younger bodies respond to volume. More reps, more miles, more hours, and the body adapts almost automatically. After 50, the body responds to signal quality instead. It's less about how much you do and more about whether what you do is specific enough to be heard over the noise of anabolic resistance and mitochondrial decline. This is why generic advice, eat less, move more, quietly fails so many men in this decade of life. It assumes the body is still listening the way it used to. It isn't. It's more selective, more conservative. It needs a clearer, more targeted signal to justify building muscle, raising metabolic rate, or improving cardiovascular efficiency. That's the science behind 6 daily movements, rather than one long workout or one broad diet rule. Short, targeted, consistent signals, daily, communicate to the body that strength, balance, and energy are still worth investing in. Not through intensity for its own sake, through precision. It also explains why so many well-intentioned efforts fall short. A man who goes hard once a week at the gym, then does nothing else, isn't giving the body a consistent signal. He's giving it an occasional shock, followed by long stretches of silence. The body adapts to what it experiences regularly, not to what it experiences once in a while. Daily, smaller signals tend to outperform infrequent larger ones, simply because consistency is what drives long-term adaptation. There's a second mechanism worth understanding here, because it explains why signal quality isn't just a metaphor. Resistance training and higher intensity effort both trigger a short-term hormonal response, including a temporary rise in growth hormone and testosterone availability that supports muscle repair and metabolic function. This response doesn't disappear after 50, but it does become more dependent on the specific type of stimulus. A gentle, low-effort routine may not clear the threshold needed to trigger it consistently. A short, targeted one is more likely to. This is part of why frequency and precision tend to matter more than duration at this stage. The body needs the signal repeated often enough and clearly enough to keep responding. This is also where the emotional shift matters. The standard narrative frames aging as a battle to be fought, a slow retreat managed by doing less, eating less, expecting less. The researched reality suggests something different. The body isn't in decline by default. It's in a new phase with new rules. Learn the rules, and strength, balance, and energy aren't things you're losing. They're things you're actively maintaining, deliberately, on your own terms. Point 5. The payoff. A different way to approach the second half. None of this requires more time. It doesn't require harder workouts or stricter eating. It requires a more accurate map, one built for the body you actually have now, not the one you had at 30. 2 corrections. Not more restriction, but more precise fuel and more targeted resistance. Not more miles, but sharper effort layered over a steady base. The result isn't a fight against aging. It's a recalibration. 6 daily movements built around what the research actually shows works at this stage of life. Balance, strength, energy. Restored, not chased. Each of the 6 movements exists for a specific reason tied to what's been laid out here. Some target the muscle groups most prone to age-related loss. Others are built to nudge cardiovascular efficiency without requiring a gym membership or an hour of free time. None of them demand more than a few minutes. That's deliberate. The goal was never volume. It was a signal delivered daily, consistently enough for the body to take it seriously. That's the difference between managing decline and staying strong on your own terms. Here's the core of it. After 50, the body doesn't respond to less food and more miles. It responds to precise signals like sufficient protein and targeted resistance work to preserve muscle, and short bursts of intensity layered over easy movement to build real cardiovascular capacity. 2 corrections. 1 underlying principle, signal quality over sheer volume, and 6 daily movements built to deliver exactly that. That's Primespan after 50. If this gives you something useful, subscribe and turn on the notification bell for another research-backed video on longevity science, vitality for healthy living. I'll see you there.